The email came through at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday. Subject line, Project Phoenix, updated team roster. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it on my phone while I was getting ready for bed. My name wasn't on it. I scrolled through the document twice, thinking maybe I'd missed it. The project I'd been leading for 9 months, the one I'd designed from the ground up, the one scheduled to launch in 6 weeks. 15 people were listed. I wasn't one of them. Where my name should have been as project lead, it now said Derek Morrison, Senior Project Manager. No explanation. No prior conversation. No heads up. Just gone. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at my phone. My wife Emma stirred. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just work stuff. Go back to sleep." But everything wasn't okay. And I knew exactly what this was. I'd been at Meridian Tech for 6 years. 6 years of consistent performance, successful projects, and positive reviews. But 8 months ago, I'd made a mistake. Not a professional one. A political one. I'd filed an HR complaint about our VP, Charles Whitmore, after he'd made inappropriate comments during a team dinner. Nothing overtly sexual, just the kind of shit that makes you uncomfortable. Comments about my appearance, questions about my personal life that crossed lines, the kind of behavior that feels wrong even if you can't quite articulate why. HR had investigated and found insufficient evidence of policy violations. Charles had been coached on professional communication, and I'd been quietly iced out ever since. Meetings I used to be included in, now I found out about them secondhand. Strategic decisions for my projects, made without my input. And now this. My name scrubbed from the biggest project of my career, replaced by Derek, who just happened to be Charles's golf buddy. I took a screenshot of the email. Then I did something I'd been doing carefully for 8 months. I forwarded it to my personal email with a simple note. Project Phoenix Team Roster Update. My name removed. No notification or explanation provided. I'd been documenting everything since the HR complaint. Every meeting I was excluded from. Every decision made without me. Every project reassignment. Building a file, not because I knew what I'd do with it, but because I had a feeling I might need it someday. Tomorrow, I'd find out if that feeling was right. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand something. This isn't a story about office politics or hurt feelings. This is about what happens when retaliation is subtle enough to be deniable but systematic enough to be obvious. When you can't prove malice, but you can document patterns. And when the paper trail you've been keeping becomes the evidence that changes everything. If you've ever been slowly erased from work you built, if you've watched credit for your ideas get reassigned to someone else, stick around. Because what they didn't know was that I'd been forwarding every suspicious email to my personal account for months. And some of those emails were about to become very interesting to the wrong people. My name is Lauren Hayes, and I'd been a senior project manager at Meridian Tech for 6 years. I specialized in product launches, the kind of high-stakes projects where missing a deadline costs millions. I was good at my job. Really good. My project success rate was 92% on time, on budget delivery. I had 3 industry awards sitting on my shelf at home. Project Phoenix was supposed to be my crowning achievement. A complete platform redesign affecting every product line, coordinating 15 departments, launching at our biggest annual conference. I'd pitched the concept, built the business case, and spent 9 months managing every detail. And now, according to a Sunday night email, it wasn't my project anymore. Monday morning, I got to the office at my usual time. Derek was already at his desk, looking uncomfortable. He avoided eye contact when I walked past. I sat down, opened my laptop, and checked my calendar. Every Project Phoenix meeting had been removed. I pulled up our project management system. My access to the Phoenix workspace had been revoked. I had been completely scrubbed from the eye. Project. At 9:15 a.m., I got a meeting invite from my manager, Patricia. Quick catch up, 10 a.m. When I walked into her office, she had the decency to look awkward. Lauren, I wanted to talk to you about the Phoenix transition. The transition I found out about via email at midnight on Sunday? She winced. The timing wasn't ideal. Charles felt the project needed different leadership for the final push. Derek has experience with large-scale launches, so do I, in fact. Derek's never led anything close to this scope. It's not a reflection on your performance, Patricia. I designed this project. I've been running it for 9 months. We're 6 weeks from launch. And I find out I'm off. Through a mass email on a Sunday night? I kept my voice level, professional. What am I supposed to think this is? I understand you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm documenting. So let me ask clearly, for the record, is this related to the HR complaint I filed 8 months ago about Charles? Her face went carefully blank. Absolutely not. This is purely a project management decision. Okay. Then I'd like that in writing. An email explaining the business justification for removing me from a project I've successfully managed for 9 months, 6 weeks before launch. I don't think that's necessary. I do. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like retaliation. And if it's not, there should be. No problem documenting the legitimate business reasons. Patricia shifted in her chair. Lauren, I'm going to be direct with you. You need to think carefully about how you want to approach this. Making accusations isn't going to help your career here. I'm not making accusations. I'm asking for documentation of a significant project reassignment. That's standard protocol. I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, you'll be reassigned to support work on the Henderson account. Support work. After leading enterprise launches. The message was clear. I left her office and went back to my desk. Then I did 3 things. First, I opened my personal email and started a new folder, Meridian Documentation. Second, I spent my lunch break downloading every file I'd created for Project Phoenix that I still had access to. Design documents, project plans, budget analyses. Every piece of evidence showing this was my project from conception to execution. Third, I composed an email to Patricia, professional and unemotional. Per our conversation this morning, I'm requesting written documentation of the business justification for my removal from Project Phoenix. Please include the specific reasons why this change was made 6 weeks before launch, and why I was not consulted or notified in advance. Thank you. I sent it. Then I BCC'd my personal email on the send. Patricia responded 3 hours later with 2 sentences. The decision was made by senior leadership based on project needs. Derek's experience was deemed a better fit for the final phase. No specifics, no business justification, just vague corporate speak that said nothing. I forwarded it to my personal email with a note, non-response to request for documentation. Over the next week, I watched from the sidelines as Derek tried to run my project. He scheduled meetings with people who didn't need to be involved. He changed workflows I'd carefully designed without understanding why they were structured that way. He missed a critical deadline with our vendor because he didn't know about the contract terms I'd negotiated. People started coming to my desk quiet. Can you explain how that's supposed to work? Lauren, the development team is getting conflicting instructions from Derek. What should we actually be doing? Lauren, Derek scheduled a review meeting, but he's presenting outdated information. Should we correct him? I gave them the same answer every time. I'm not on Project Phoenix anymore. You'll need to work with Derek on that. Some looked frustrated. Others looked concerned. But I didn't interfere. Derek was drowning, and I was documenting every time someone came to me because the new leadership didn't know what the hell they were doing. 2 weeks after my removal, I got an unexpected email from Meridian's General Counsel, Janet Friedman. Lauren, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you to discuss some personnel matters. Please, don't discuss this meeting with anyone prior to our conversation. Would Wednesday at 2 p.m. work? My stomach dropped. This was either very good or very bad. Wednesday at 2 p.m., I walked into the legal department. Janet was there along with someone I didn't recognize. He introduced himself as Marcus Chen, outside employment counsel. "Lauren, thank you for coming," Janet said. "We're conducting a routine audit of personnel actions across the company. Your name came up in our review because of some irregularities we noticed." I said nothing. Waited. Specifically, Marcus said, "We noticed that you were removed from a high-profile project without standard documentation. No performance issues noted. No consultation with HR about the reassignment. And the timing raised some flags given that you filed a workplace complaint 8 months ago." "I did notice the timing," I said carefully. "We've pulled records of other personnel actions involving employees who filed complaints. There's a pattern of what could be interpreted as retaliatory actions. Removals from projects, exclusion from meetings, reassignments to less visible work. Are you aware of other employees experiencing similar treatment? I'm aware that after I filed my complaint, my access to strategic projects changed significantly." Janet leaned forward. "Lauren, I need to ask you directly. Do you have documentation of how your role changed after filing the complaint?" I did. 8 months of it. Every email. Every meeting invite removal. Every project reassignment. All forwarded to my personal email as they happened. "I have some documentation, yes. We'd like to review it. Would you be willing to share that with us confidentially for our investigation?" This was the moment. I could say no, protect myself, hope this blew over. Or I could hand over everything and trust that legal actually cared about fixing the problem. "Yes," I said. "But I need to understand something first. Is this a real investigation or a SIA exercise?" Marcus didn't look offended. "Fair question. I'm outside counsel brought in specifically because Janet suspected internal issues weren't being handled appropriately. My job is to assess legal exposure. If there's actionable retaliation, the company has significant liability." "That's not SIA. That's damage control." "Okay. I'll send you everything I have." That evening, I spent 3 hours organizing my documentation. 8 months of emails, meeting removals, project reassignments, and conversations. I created a timeline showing exactly how my role changed after the HR complaint. Then I sent it to Janet and Marcus with a detailed summary. 24 hours later, Janet called me. "Lauren, we need to..." "Based on your documentation and cross-referencing with other employees' files, we've identified 5 other women who filed complaints about Charles and subsequently experienced similar treatment. Can you come in tomorrow morning? We have more questions." The next morning, I met with Janet, Marcus, and someone from the executive team I'd never met before. Rebecca Torres, cool. "Ms. Hayes," Rebecca said, "I've reviewed the documentation you provided. This is extremely concerning. I want you to know that we're taking this seriously." "With respect," I said, "HR took my original complaint seriously too." "Then nothing changed except my career trajectory. You're right. And that's a systemic failure we're addressing. Charles Whitmore has been placed on administrative leave as of this." I blinked. Charles was actually being held accountable? "As for Project Phoenix," Rebecca continued, "we have a problem. Derek is not equipped to deliver this project successfully, and we're now 4 weeks from launch. I'm going to be..." "We need you back on that project. You removed me without cause 3 weeks ago. Now you want me to clean up the mess? Yes? And I'm offering you appropriate compensation for doing so. Immediate promotion to Director of Program Management, 20% salary increase, and a commitment that the investigation findings will result in structural changes to prevent this from happening again." I took a breath. I want 3 things. First, public reinstatement to Project Phoenix with clear communication that the previous change was an error. Second, direct reporting to you instead of Patricia, since she was complicit in the retaliation. Third, guaranteed seat in any disciplinary discussions about Charles's actions. Rebecca nodded. "Done. All 3. Then yes, I'll take the project back." That afternoon, an email went out to the entire Project Phoenix team. Effective immediately, Lauren Hayes is reinstated as project lead for Phoenix. Derek Morrison will transition to a support role. This change reflects the need for continuity leadership as we approach launch. Derek cleaned out the project files within an hour. Didn't even make eye contact. Over the next 4 weeks, I worked 80-hour weeks, getting Project Phoenix back on track. Fixed the vendor issues Derek had created. Realigned the team. Rebuilt the workflows he'd broken. Delivered the launch on time. Project Phoenix was a massive success. Industry coverage, client adoption exceeding projections, internal celebration. My name was on every presentation, every press release, every success metric. Charles Whitmore resigned before the investigation concluded. The company offered him a separation agreement in exchange for a non-disparagement clause and release of claims. He took it. Patricia was reassigned to a non-management role. Turns out she'd been carrying out Charles's retaliation instructions and had done it to 3 other employees before me. The 5 other women who'd filed complaints and experienced retaliation all received settlements, apologies, and career remediation. 2 returned to positions they'd been pushed out of. 3 took generous severance packages and moved to competitors. 6 months after my name disappeared from that Sunday night email, I was promoted again. VP of Program Management, leading a team of 12. Reporting directly to Rebecca. In my first leadership team meeting, Rebecca asked me to present on lessons learned from the Phoenix Project. I pulled up a slide titled, "What happens when you remove the person who built it?" Project Phoenix nearly failed, I said, not because of technical challenges, but because leadership made a personnel decision based on politics instead of competence. When you remove people from projects they've built for reasons unrelated to performance, you lose institutional knowledge, you lose stakeholder trust, and you lose the momentum that took months to build. You lose stakeholder trust. I clicked to the next slide. This company has a choice: protect people who abuse power or build systems that prevent abuse. You can't do both. The room was quiet. I'm here because I documented everything, and because legal actually investigated. Most people don't have that documentation. Most people don't get that investigation. If we're serious about fixing this culture, we need to make it easier for people to raise concerns without risking their careers. And we need to hold leaders accountable when they retaliate. Rebecca nodded, agreed. Lauren, I'd like you to lead a task force on harassment reporting and accountability. You've seen the worst of our failures. Help us build something better. A year after my name vanished from Project Phoenix, I was sitting in a conference room with 3 young women from the product team. One of them, Amy, had asked to speak with me privately. Lauren, I need advice. I reported my manager for making inappropriate comments about my appearance. AR said they'd investigate. But now I'm being excluded from projects I was leading. I don't know what to do. I pulled out a notebook. First thing you're going to do is start documenting everything. Every meeting removal, every project change, every interaction that feels retaliatory. Email it to your personal account. Build a timeline. That feels paranoid. It's not paranoia if they're actually retaliating. And here's what I learned. Documentation is the only thing that cuts through. He said, she said. You can't prove a pattern without records. What if nothing happens? What if I document everything and still get pushed out? Then you have evidence for a legal claim. But more importantly, you have proof of what happened. Not just for yourself, but for the next person. Every documented case makes it harder for the company to claim these are isolated incidents. She nodded slowly. Did documenting everything actually help you? It saved my career. And it helped 5 other women get settlements. So yeah, it helped. If you've stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. This isn't a dramatic revenge tale with explosive confrontations. It's about something more important. The truth is, they tried to erase me from work I'd built because I'd reported behavior that made them uncomfortable. They thought they could do it quietly, subtly, in ways I couldn't prove. They forgot that turns become evidence when you document them consistently. If you've ever been quietly sidelined, if you've watched credit for your work get reassigned to someone else, if you've felt the sting of professional retaliation, I want you to know something. Your documentation matters. Your paper trail matters. And the forwarded emails you're saving to your personal account might be the evidence that not only protects you, but helps others too. If this resonated, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment about your experiences with workplace retaliation or times when documentation saved you. Your stories help others recognize patterns and know they're not alone. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't confronting people in the moment. It's quietly building a file that eventually speaks louder than any argument ever could, and making sure every suspicious email gets forwarded somewhere they can't delete it.